get into this. We are talking about navigating uncertainty, which, oh my God. Yes. Mackenzie?
Yes.
Do tell. You channeled this, and you channeled this before the entire world changed, which is why it's so cool, because the universe said, girl, this is actually, this is your gift. And so you channeled this before the whole world realized they were in a space of absolute uncertainty. What are you even talking about? And take us home, sister. Where are we going?
Okay, so I'll kind of give you the situation in a very big nutshell. It's the premise that uncertainty in both life and work, it brings fear up. It brings up fears and feelings and emotions. That's just the way it works in life, and that keeps us from operating at our best, both as humans and also as companies. So, I talk a lot about this in the manifesto, but all of that creates tension. So then we end up living in these, little bubbles of tension, and in self-organized, self-managing companies, which is really more of like this progressive future of work way of operating a company, which many traditional companies are waking up to. But, tension is celebrated. Like, that's how we figure out where to go next. It's kind of like the thought that contrast breeds clarity, so it's how we show up in it that makes it hard. And then as a company, when we're not conscious to the ideals that we're running and hustling towards, and then we don't have our emotions in check. We don't know how to manage our emotions. We don't know how to be self-aware and do a lot of the things that we need to manage as humans in uncertain environments. It's just, we get a whole lot of trouble and a whole lot of people being not so good to each other,
Yeah. And the thing is that people are a business of one. And so they show up at the workplace as themselves. Like, they cannot hide that. And so you're really talking about the fundamental core values of how business has really been run, and how that's not in alignment with who people are. And so we have to become conscious around the work that we're doing, which is why you're really bringing this forth, I think. I'm projecting my thoughts onto you, why you're going into these spaces to help people to get real.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the word wholeness, I've heard people say that a lot in the last, 6, 8, 12 months, even, before COVID, like, bring your whole self to work. We hear that all the time, which absolutely a huge advocate for that. However, many of us don't have the tools to do that. And so now we're coming to work and we want to be who we are, and we're working our shit out on other people, and we're blaming, and we're not, taking care of our own needs. And so that's the human side of it, right? So I always call this whole understanding of how companies navigate uncertainty, there's 2 big parts. Like, we have ways of being and ways of doing. So the ways of being is that, if you want to bucket it into like that leadership side, as a leader. And when I say leader, I don't mean exec or senior person. I mean, every human being who steps into that company is responsible for being a grown-up, right? And if we want them to operate in those healthy and whole ways, there are things we need to teach them. There are tools they need to learn. So that's all ways of being, right? So then there's also the business side. We work in companies and we run businesses because we want to make money. There is no shame in that, right? But our systems and the way in which we try to control and make people do things, or, you'll hear people say, I want our employees to be more motivated at work. We want to motivate them. Well, we don't control that. They do. So yeah. How do you build your systems in a way that create these conditions for the best of what we want to happen. So it's absolutely an intersection of those two things, where this is not just a quote unquote culture thing. This is not the, when people call it this, I want to scream, the soft skills, you know, we just need to learn the soft stuff, you know. It is absolutely the hardest work that companies will ever do.
So an emotion, is that the soft skills?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
friggin' buzzwords.
Yeah, no, it's like the behaviors, you know. So I think what's funny now is that we're coming into this time where talk about uncertainty is always with us. You and I have talked about this before. It's all we've got. And Pema Chodron writes beautifully about this at length, and all the behaviors that show up in us when we're afraid, you know, when we're uncertain, when we feel insecure, and how really all we have is this moment, and then we have this one, and then we have this one, right? So it's interesting because it really does bring that Buddhist philosophy into business without people even realizing it. But when COVID happened, you know, companies have been scrambling, like, how do we work 100% remote and trust our people and still get the same amount of work done? And, you know, it's all about that. Well, when you're creating an environment that doesn't trust the people it works with, and the systems aren't there also to support that, then of course we're going to have a lot of stuff show up under uncertainty, under the extreme pressure and the fears and feelings and the emotional hardships that are coming down on people harder than ever. Of course, that's going to make us break. You know, we're not ready to face it that way. Many businesses have already shifted to this thought and are practicing this thought, but many, many, many have not. And to
we're humans.
Yeah.
We're human. So, I mean, if you think about it from like a relationship standpoint, you know, if I'm not putting my thumb on you, or if I don't see you, I'm not going to trust that you're going to do the things you say you're going to do. I don't trust, like, so you're talking about who we are as people.
Yeah.
Then it cannot help but become the culture in which our tiny little small startup business, to our mid-sized business, to our gigantic global dominating business, if we do not have trust with self, because it goes back to self, then
the words I was just thinking was journey to self. If we struggle that hard in our journey with ourselves to manage the uncertainty that we're dealt in our lives, we don't like surprises, we don't like bumps that, you know, bring us hardship, or you know, things that happen that it's uncomfortable. It's not bringing us a feeling of like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. Yes, you know. If we struggle with that journey, imagine what struggles are present collectively in an organization. And really, that's all we've got. We have a collective of individuals who have come together around a purpose to do work together because they believe in something. But the toil and the energy required, even just to manage yourself, and now you're stepping into a system and a collective of people who are running systems and trying to control and trying to ignore that we have these reactions to uncertainty constantly. If we don't do that as individuals, then how will we ever do it as a collective? Right. So I mean, it's this.
Oh, you're good. There was a little lag.
I think there was a little delay.
There was a little delay. You keep going, and I'll edit that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No worries. Just kind of saying that, you know, our job as humans individually to navigate that journey of self, it doesn't go away when we step out of our home, whether we choose that journey or not, because many of us don't, right? And that's okay too. And it's not like you're asking everyone in your company to all of a sudden be woke and become Buddhists. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's pretty unrealistic expectations. But
if you're gonna ask them to do anything, those are some good asks.
absolutely, if only. But yeah, I mean, the premise is that uncertainty is hard. Period. It was hard way before I started talking about. It's not like I own this topic. It's just that my journey through owning my own business and being inside of multi-billion-dollar businesses and also 30-person businesses, you know, at all sizes, all gamuts, all industries. The problems are all the same because we're human and we perpetuate the same things because we're afraid and because we crave security. And as Jerry Colonna would say, we need safety, love, and belonging. You know, whether we're at home or at work, we need those things, you know?
So you started, I mean, you've been on a journey through life just in your various aspects of your businesses and building communities and then really understanding the structures within communities. And you started doing this work from our sister Brene Brown, not Brene, Brene Brown, Brene Brown. And because you really wanted to explore that psychological, intellectual, emotional aspect of these structures. And really what she talks about and what you knew before you learned in the process, and you've really made this bad boy your own, which is so exciting that we get to have time with you for the next many a moon. But really this notion of vulnerability. So talk about vulnerability as a business owner, as a CEO, as someone who's running from small to ginormous companies. Why is vulnerability so important when we are talking about life and then life, the uncertainty of life?
Yeah. Well, boy, do I love Brene. I feel like Brene was this gift that opened up for me right at a time where I was thinking, as an org designer, is it really all about systems? Which I adore and very much am a systems thinker. But what I was watching in these companies that was not moving, wasn't moving because of the system. It wasn't moving because of the people, you know, and not to put the blame on the people, but knowing that if we have people who are in fear and who need support, you know, navigating that and understanding really how to manage their emotions in our work environments every day with pressures and deliverables and deadlines and all the things performing. We can't get there without breaking down the vulnerability of that for people. And that's really what Brene does in her work. And she's had 20 some years of studying vulnerability and understanding its role in our human development and our human behavior. So I trained with her for a few days to be certified to be able to teach her content. And then I basically intersected it with all of the systems knowledge and the org design stuff that I had in my back pocket. So the vulnerability premise is brilliant because we're all vulnerable all the time. It's just a matter of whether we embrace that and acknowledge that and use that as a softening to approach our world, or do we deny it and push it away and force and prove and protect, like she would say, and use our armor to ride the wave, you know?
But as you said before, it's all a choice. It's all a choice. We choose again or not. And so that's the thing, is that this whole journey is a choice. How do you want to show up for yourself and in your own life, and then how do you want to show up at work? And the thing is, there are no differences in that. If I am at home and I'm blaming and shaming and this and that and carrying on, which like sign me up, I'm reforming myself.
Ditto.
And then right, and then you find like, oh, I go to work and I'm the same person. Like, that you can't help but take responsibility at some point for
absolutely
what's happening in your world.
Absolutely. And I think it was Martha Beck who says, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Oh, I love that.
And it's like what we talked about with this coming back to, it doesn't, the wholeness, your wholeness is not changed whether you're at work or whether you're at home. And so it's an understanding of, as companies, are we going to acknowledge the fact that we have humans working in our companies and they don't all have the tools that they need to navigate the environments that we're in? They just don't. It is unfair to expect that. Is it a luxury or a privilege to teach that to your employees? Yes. Is it a necessity? Absolutely. If companies want the results that they're asking for, that are literally astronomical in many cases, right? So
how do you think that the companies, whether you're working with them or not, just on the global level, like, do you have a pulse on how companies are rising or crumbling, for that matter, in this time of uncertainty? And,
Well, how about even like from a case study perspective? So there's this beautiful, wonderful, amazing company that I've been working with for about 15 months now. And we had probably about 7 months under our belts together before COVID hit. And they, signed up for the entire, as we would call it, a transformation. So that requires both changes in cultural stuff, leadership, ways of being, all the ways we are with each other as people. And absolutely it requires an overhaul of our systems, which I would label as ways of doing. These are the things that run our businesses. This is what we use to operate, right? So there's an interlocking that happens between those two pieces of work. But I was on this journey with this company, and certainly it's a rough ride, right? Like, it's as much my work as it is their work, in the sense of every day I'm meeting my own fears and my own insecurities and my own stories in doing this work with them, because I'm pushing people to the limits and disrupting everything they believe about work and business and leadership, and asking them to park that and unlearn a bunch of shit so that we can strip away all of the armor and all of the cloudiness that has gotten in the way of them being real human beings with each other, that unlock those systems they want so badly to run faster and perform better, right? So
that is absolutely brilliant. So you go meet them at work, so that you can then help them to create their own transformational experiences at home and across channel, if we are going to do some bullshit speak. That is brilliant. Can you break this down a little bit, as far as some of that work, just like on that micro level, as the processes, because everyone has this org, they have this desired outcome. We want to activate our people so that they're most productive, so that we can make the most money, so that we can do da. So there's the steps to success. So tell me what happens within these people so that this process becomes uncoagulated, or there's like more of a funnel of light, if you will, for them to expand themselves and really be able to perform at that higher level.
Yeah. So it's always an invitation, although we get to a point where, you know, if you don't want to get on this ride to where we're committing to being vulnerable, honest, compassionate, generous, curious, and to where ultimately it's that me first then them mentality of I have to get my work, you know, for me. I have to manage my emotions. I need to manage my needs. I need to understand in terms of my self-inquiry and awareness, like what I have to chew through and take care of. Brene calls it rumbling. Jerry Colonic calls it radical self-inquiry. You know, I have to take care of that first so that then I can walk into interactions with grown-ups as a grown-up, so I'm not tearing other people down because of the discomfort and pain that I'm in. So the invitation to that is truly through, I say a lot, you know, we do the work in the work. So it's like you start with a couple of teams, depending on how large the organization is. You might start with just 2 teams, and you start to kind of create this safe space for those teams to learn how to work in new ways. And that's everything from how do we talk to each other, not about each other. So communication is a part of all of it.
101. Hello.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. So there's that, as much as there is how do we run a meeting so that we don't go into a room together and do nothing for an hour, and then our whole day is full of meetings and we've gotten no work done, right? Like that's not a work environment. So it's both sides. Obviously, as humans, we love to do the side that helps us clean up processes, that helps us check off lists, that helps us do all the linear shit that makes us feel like, oh, this is how you work, right? But the real work is then in the underneath, where we're facing those stories that we have when we're walking into a meeting and we hear somebody say something, and instead of talking to them about it, we go talk to our buddies about it, and we gossip and we do drama and we back channel, right?
And is that just fear? I mean, what is that smallness? I mean, why are we so afraid as humans to say, hey, Mac, you know, you hurt my feelings because you said whatever, or because that's the reality of it. It's like, or you are so audacious in your thought that I'd rather talk to Jim over here about you because I feel smaller than you. Why is that part of the construct?
Because we're all 5. Literally. We are all 5. If you really think about it, we're most of us, without maybe even knowing it, we're mostly driving from our wounds, you know, and we don't know any better. So that's where the empathy piece in this work has been enormous for me, because as you were saying, the reformation that we've been doing as parents and as partners and as friends and all the other roles we play, it's like I am judgmental AF, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm critical and I'm a perfectionist, and I'm all the things that I really don't want to be because they feel bad. But what I'm learning through this work in teaching other adults how they can be free of those things too, is that it's okay. You know, we learned how to manage and kind of how to stay alive in some sense of the word when we were kids, and how to navigate our environment. Some of us were luckier than others. And then we become these adults, and then we have all this stuff that we carried with us that is mostly unconscious, right? And then that stuff runs us. So it's all the stuff that when you put that into the pressure cooker of work, where we have so much pressure to meet our deadlines and our sales quotas and impress our bosses and climb the ladder and be moms and do all the other things that we're doing in our careers, well, no wonder we want to go into meetings and just get shit done and not say, how are you today? You know, no wonder we don't want to take time to talk directly to people to work things out. We're afraid and we're tired and we're depleted. We don't have empathy and compassion for ourselves. How are we supposed to do that for someone else? you know?
Yes. And you know what really comes up for me as you've been talking just about this process of, becoming self-aware and, we don't know what we're doing. It's like we have to begin to re-parent ourselves because we have to reprogram. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. Like, I mean, we all could blame our parents for being who we are today, whether that's good or maybe a little bit messed up, because guess what, we all are. We could be in that blame game. I went to a therapist at one point in time who helped me to uncover a big piece about why I had this little nick in a hitch in my giddy up with my husband, but it was really about my parent. Okay, great, I love that. She wanted to continue to belabor that subject. I was like, oh, I'm not mad at them, thank you for helping to uncover that, but I don't need to go back, and I don't need to make any amends with them. I need to be responsible for myself. So I think that if we can be our own guru, get our own mind right, because to your point earlier of these employers are asking their folks to come in and to show up as you are, be yourself at work and all that. But what you said is that, if you haven't dialed your story in, you're going to go into that workspace and shit all over everybody because you have not done your own work. And that's just not okay. I'm actually in a project right now where there's clearly some pain within someone on the other side of the project, and their behavior is absolutely unprofessional, and it clearly comes from a place of being wounded. Glad I have the presence of mind to know that. But if you don't have the presence of mind to know that, then it can clog the system in these larger organizations, and actually especially in these smaller organizations where you don't have the luxury of all the people that you can kind of hide behind or talk to or all of that. So this is really frigging fascinating because we're just people.
Absolutely. And people who are trying to make a living, and right now, especially with COVID, take care of our families and keep ourselves safe. Like, literally, for some people right now, it actually is a matter of life or death. Right?
Yes.
So yeah, you just mix all that together, and to kind of circle back to that story about the company that I've been helping, they had 7 months of training. So it's like, two teams start to seed some of these ways of working, these guiding principles that we use, that are more agile in nature. So like small moves over big moves, less over more, progress over perfection, consent over consensus, all things that help companies operate better in terms of agility. And, pairing that with all the leadership stuff, right? Like helping them learn the courage to talk to people, not about people, and many other things, right? So that started to scale out to the corners of the company. And when we were about 7 months in, COVID hit. And where most companies, really everybody just went, whoa, what the hell is going on? And I remember being choked by the fear of what it seemed to be coming at us. And then I paused myself and I was like, wait a minute. It's all construct, right? We know nothing. This is all the practice of walking into uncertainty. And so I was in Arizona at the time, and I got on a Zoom call for this company. And basically we just spent an hour talking about fear and talking about uncertainty, and basically reassuring them to say, hey, you have been in training for this for 7 months. If anybody is prepared to face this level of uncertainty, it's you guys. You have the tools, you've been practicing, you're aware. And so we just worked through what it feels like to feel this much fear, and how do we walk into uncertainty? One small move at a time. We don't need plans. We don't need anything that is going to be irrelevant, maybe even tomorrow. That's what we've been noticing, right? Is things don't even last 3 weeks. We only have 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
It's changing so quickly. So we've been having a lot of those conversations, but to be honest, they accelerated. They had to, make some adjustments, and they had to right size some things. And absolutely, that it has not been easy, but they faced it like champs, and with wholeheartedness, taking care of people, running the business, being fiscally responsible. And they're even more profitable when they were before COVID hit. So
That's
it's
incredible.
absolutely possible. It's just like you said, it's a commitment to myself and to the people around me.
So before we pop off here, let's talk about uncertainty. Why? I mean, it's truly crazy because we have built this life, at least our American life, on the notion of the safety. And I really think that, I mean, granted, I was not alive in the 50s, but we have enough data to go back. The 50s were really a time where we built the constructs, because we were coming out of this very scary time, war, the depression. I mean, it was like we were at the bottom of the barrel. And so we needed to create the American dream so that we could have something new. And actually, I'm not dissing the American dream. It wasn't possible for everybody, or at least they didn't think it was, so it wasn't possible for them. So we started to build these constructs over time that clearly did not work. So we lived in this fake bubble, and I guess not every bubble's fake, but we lived in this bubble. And then in the 60s, people were like, wait a second, this is bullshit. And then, so like, basically we had a moment of bubble life. Some people did. And then we've been like breaking down those constructs and building them faster and bigger and supersized ever since. And, but we've lived in this illusion. We've always been, life is uncertain. The planet, the universe and the things that the universe creates that I'm certain that there is some sort of evolution happening, but even that is not certain. At least we don't know it. So, we have lied to ourselves. So we get over it. We can, and I can have compassion. Pardon me. I will go back to my compassionate self wherever she is. Right. And so it's like, okay, let's take time to grieve that lie that we created for ourselves. Yeah. And let's get real about this whole thing. And how can we find peace in the discomfort, in the uncertainty, and like settle into this is the reality is that the reality is uncertain, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think that we're so wired for comfort and security, and some of it is just part of our, caveman days of, it really was fight or flight, right? Like those things don't leave us. They're always here, but just like in the work that I've done to, understand what my wounds and things of my past and how my mindsets and belief systems and the way that I navigated my environment when I was a kid and how that's different now because I'm an adult. The learning that, doesn't mean it makes it any easier to navigate uncertainty and face the hard things that I've built the courage to do today. It doesn't make it any easier. It just makes it easier to understand, in the sense that, sorry, I got a little distracted.
That's okay.
We can just cut that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you were talking about, how the uncertainty is always here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just that as humans, we're so wired to feel we want comfort. And like you're saying, we've built an entire world based on consumerism and medication and numbing and, with alcohol and drugs and all the things, shopping, travel, everything you want to name. So we don't want to be uncomfortable. We've tried to engineer that out of our culture, right? So when we talk about doing the hard, arduous work of coming back to center, not only as people, but also as companies, that's hard work. And we're not naturally built to go through that with ease. We're going to fight it. We're going to fight change. We always fight change, even if it's good for us. Girl,
that is amazing. And what is so good is that I'm going to learn so much from you in this process, but what we're going to be able to do is really break this thing down into various little modules so that we can help people show up in their place of business, wherever that is, no matter small or large, and give you all the tools that you need. Mack is truly one of the most innovative designers and intuitive on top of that. And so because you've lived it, and you live it every day, and you rise to the occasion every day, even when it's hard. And so you're constantly sitting in your own uncertainty and going, okay, what do I need to know about this? So we are going to really just break this thing down, because if we do not address this fine moment and really choose to evolve and to have that transformation for ourselves, whether we own a business, whether we work somewhere, or whether we think we want to go and work somewhere, we have got to use this moment to redefine what we believe reality is. And I know that you have so many tools to help us through that. And so if we are not growing, especially in this moment, we will perish. And that is not to scare people or to be like gloom and doom. That is just the reality. We have to rise or we will fall away.
It's an invitation, right? Right now, it's an invitation and a gift for us to be able to walk through it with a different lens.
A to the men. Stay tuned for more of Mackenzie Fogelson. We are going to be all up in this uncertainty. And honestly, Mackenzie, what'll be really cool